Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today is a true rock renaissance man. He's one of the longest serving members of Quiet Riot. He's an original member of Giuffria, of House of Lords. He's appeared on over 100 records, including one of my favorites ever, Impelliteri's Stand in Line.
Ah, Grant Bonnet, yeah.
And he's about to release his first ever solo record called Sheltering Sky on May 20th. Please welcome Chuck Wright. Welcome, Chuck.
Hey, nice to meet you. Hello,
You as
everybody.
well. So, first of all, congratulations on Sheltering Sky. And your career goes back 40 years now. Why
Is
is
it that
now
long
the
ago?
yeah,
Get out my walker. Okay.
God
Yeah,
made me
all right.
feel old because I remember all of it.
Yeah, okay. It went, you know what? That's all I can say is it goes fast, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why now for a solo record?
Well, now, because I had the time. I
Mhm.
mean, the pandemic was a horrible, horrible thing for the world. And I tried to take a bad situation. And I just, it all started with when the pandemic hit. I was looking around and everything had an apocalyptic feel to it.
Mhm.
New York City's empty. I mean,
Mhm.
all these big, are empty. So I sat down and wrote a song called "The Weight of Silence," the heaviness of the
Mhm.
silence of everything. And it's an instrumental, and I edited myself together a video incorporating drone footage of all the different famous places with no
Mhm.
people. And I just had one character that was left. He's like the last man on earth in a hazmat suit. Was basically, and there's a train, an empty
Mhm.
train that goes through the whole video. And I put that together myself. I put it up, and sure enough, I get a call from Troy Lucetta from Tesla,
Mhm.
and he goes, "Man, I love this song. Can I play drums on it?" And I said, "I haven't really thought about that, but sure." He has a studio, so I
Yeah.
sent him some tracks to play too. Sounded amazing. And then another friend named Alan Hines, who's a top jazz fusion guitar
Mhm.
player in LA here, and has played with a lot of people, but he put on some guitar that was just brilliant, kind of David Gilmour, Jeff Beck
Mhm.
kind of thing. He could slide. And then Dirk Sherinian came on board and did some strings, mellotron, and synthesizer, and theremin on it. And I all of a sudden I edited together a new video of it. I actually brought in flamenco guitars to reinforce my guitar
Mhm.
playing. I mean, I play guitar on most of the album
Yeah.
acoustic, but a guy named Ben Woods, who's an amazing flamenco guitarist. He had a band called Heavy Mellow. They would like do Iron Maiden, but they do it like a flamenco
Oh,
style.
nice.
Yeah, very, very cool. So that happened, and then I just started. I had no intention of making a solo record, really.
Mhm.
I just was writing music that I liked. Just songs would come to me, and I would just
Mhm.
create, and then I would like approach somebody that I thought, oh, who'd be great for this solo on this, and
Mhm.
I'd get it. Let's say I wanted a Jeff Beck style solo on the song, so for this one particular one, and I got a hold of Jude Gold from Jefferson Starship,
Mhm.
and he just knocked it out of the park. It's a brilliant, brilliant solo on that song, and actually there's 5 guitar players on it, so
Mhm.
it's pretty amazing. That's "See You on the Other Side," which actually, speaking of songwriting, I wrote that in one sitting. I got the phone call that Frankie had passed,
Mhm.
and I wrote this whole song top to bottom. I even had the chorus, uh, uh, lyric, and melody came out all in one sitting, and I developed the song "See You on the Other Side" with August Young, who was working with Frankie at the time in his Zepp
Mhm.
band. And I wanted to include everybody that kind of worked with Frankie around that period on
You,
that particular song.
and you mentioned a lot of the people that have worked on this record. You have some incredible guests throughout it. But some I think kind of stand out, at least to me. I mean, most notably for me was your bandmate on that Impellitteri record, the late Pat Torpy. And we
Yeah, I
lost
know.
Pat four
Yeah, I
years
know.
ago. I mean, when were those tracks
Well,
recorded?
yeah, and there's 3 songs with Pat on
Mm,
there. In my first 2 singles, actually, "Army of Me"
mm,
and "Throwing Stones," which is the one I just
mm,
released. His drumming's on there. What happened was I was searching through some files, music files, and I came across these songs that Lanny Cordola, who you might know
mhm,
from House of Lords, and myself and Pat got together, and we would get together a lot and just jam. We had 2 albums out as a band called Odd Man Out,
mm,
that came out like around 2000, 1999,
mm,
2000, 2001, with a lot of guests on it, but it was pretty eclectic, like my record, but more just rock.
mhm,
And I found these tracks that we had done a few years back, and I just thought to myself, I go, this is too good to just let it be evaporate and
mm,
become nothing, right? So I decided to finish it. And Army of Me happened because we were just in the studio. Pat really liked the drum groove because it's basically Bjork's song.
Mm.
She lifted John Bonham's drum part from the levee breaks,
Yeah.
and that's what's going on. And so Pat started playing. We just jammed on it.
Mm.
I'm not even playing the right bass part. If you really analyze the two, the bass part's close, but it's not correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just said, you know what? It has magic to it. I'm leaving it. And so I had the rhythm guitar tracks, Pat's drumming, and my bass, and then I built the 3 songs from there, bringing in other players like Mitch Perry on Throwing Stones, and the best keyboard player in town, Matt Rohde, who plays Jane's Addiction, and other people. Him and Derek are great. They're both phenomenal keyboard players. Brought, just whoever's right for the part, I would reach out to and say, hey, what do you think? And they would want to do it. They just said, yeah, this is great. So, and it's not what you would expect. I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, it's a rock guy going to do, but that's not what this album is at all.
Yeah, you mentioned Lanny Cordola on it from the original lineup of House of Lords with you. And, it was really good to hear Lanny play because it's been so long. And, I know he was teaching music in Afghanistan for a while.
He's been going through hell trying to get his girls out of there, since they took over, since the country fell,
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. Have you been in touch with Lanny recently? Everything going good with him? Yeah.
I have. I wanted to, I've been sending him what I've been working on, and we're always in touch. I mean, he's one of my best friends. He's basically family. It's just that he's over there.
Yeah.
He became like Gandhi or something. It's amazing. But he was able to just recently, within I think 2 weeks ago, able to get some of the girls, his students, out of the country. So I'm really happy about that. He's been really trying really hard, and we've been raising money for it and doing what we can, to help his situation out there. I mean, it's pathetic and sad, really, but the world's crazy. It's a crazy world. And my first 3 videos kind of reflect that, but not like the song Throwing Stones is an anti-war message song, but it was written before Russia invaded,
Ukraine.
Totally it happened. He wrote, and it just happened to be the timing. So when I made the video, I kind of tied it all in to what was going on.
And you talked about writing some of these songs, and you always, and on this record, you wrote or co-wrote all 9 of the original songs and then the 2 covers, and you always wrote or co-wrote throughout your career. So were some of these songs stuff you've had from years back, or was it all fairly new? What's sort of the history of them?
I would say most of it, besides the 3 tracks that I told you that we jammed on with Lanny when we were working up some material back then, most of it's new. There's a song that I've always wanted to do that I've had around. It's called "Giving Up the Ghost," and I finished that out. And it's one of my favorite songs on the record.
I love that track, actually.
Oh, thank you. And Whitney Ty, who's the singer on it, is also on 2 other songs. And she's somebody I met via Ultimate Jam Night, and I thought she was perfect for Army of Me, is how it all started. I go, who's the right voice for this song? And I go, oh, Whitney Ty would be great. And then we become really close friends, and we wrote together. The song Time Waits for No One, she's a writer on with me, and she sang Giving Up the Ghost. So it's different singers on the album. Another great singer on the album, besides Joe Retta's killer vocal on Throwing Stones, is Jeff Scott Soto.
Of course.
Who people know him with TSO and Sons of Apollo and his own solo stuff, Soto, Talisman. This guy does everything. And I know that he's an R&B funk soul singer.
Yes,
too.
He is.
In fact, he's doing Boogie Nights this weekend, I heard. But and I had this funk tune, and I go, oh man. I said, hey, do you think you could sing this? And he jumped on it within 3 hours. I had the tracks done. I wouldn't have changed a thing. He goes, yeah, I'll knock this out for you. He's a really good friend, a great guy. I met him when Yngwie was opening for Quiet Riot in 1987, 88, around then. I think 87.
Yeah.
He was like pretty young guy. Come walking off the bus, and I'm going, hey, who's this guy with all the hair? Great singer, man.
Mhm.
And a really, really good person, really great guy.
Well, Jeff's actually a good friend. He's probably been the guest I've had on this site the most. We actually just
Oh,
did
wow.
an interview a couple
Well, he's
weeks
always
ago.
releasing something every three
Yeah,
months,
yeah,
He's the most prolific guy I know.
yeah. Jeff's. We always joke that he's kind of my co-host on here.
Oh,
One of
okay.
these days,
Right.
we'll put something together where he's on as my co-host.
And he asks questions along with you. Okay. That would
He's
be
a
fun.
great guy.
Yeah.
But kind of taking a look through your career a bit, you've talked about Quiet Riot, and it ended rather abruptly. But go back to the beginning. I mean, how'd you first? Because you were
It's
there
ended
on Metal
abruptly
Health.
many times, actually.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
How did you first get hooked up with the band way back, in the Mental Health days?
Well, what had happened was I had a band that was a progressive rock band called Satyr that was packing it out in LA. We were the first rock band in history to have a laser show. We knew a guy that developed the technology at Pasadena Tech. So we're shooting the lasers off mirrors, and we had a screen. We had, behind us with laser things going on, and we had two stages that looked like flying saucers. It was a sci-fi progressive rock band. If you can imagine Genesis meets Led Zeppelin, because we still rocked, or Queen, all put together. And my guitar player ended up playing with Kevin in his band Dubrow, because there was no longer that Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot. Randy left, and he was playing guitar, and then Rudy left to go play with Ozzy, and then they asked me to join, and they were apprehensive at first because of my prog background, but I'm a big fan of Humble Pie and the Allman Brothers and those kind of bands too, so it was an easy fit for me. And Kevin and I became really, really close friends over the years, and especially during that time too. I was always going over to his apartment or whatever. But we just started playing the clubs, doing the grudge work. And I remember opening up for Motorhead out in the Valley. And then I got in a car and drove to the Troubadour to headline with my band in one show. So, I was like, you have to do a lot of things to stay afloat as a musician, as you probably know. So, we were playing around Spencer Proffer Sauce. And we got Bob left the band, the guitar player, the guy from my band, and I suggested Carlos Cavazzo, and we all got together and went to see his band Snow that was playing. So the producer, myself, Kevin, went, and we thought, oh, Carlos would be great. And he had this song in his band called No More Booze. I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but it's No More Booze, what a track, which became Bang Your Head. Kevin loved the music, changed the words. He got the concept for Bang Your Head from a phone call he had with Randy Rhoads. I know some people probably know that story already, but Randy said, yeah, the kids over here are doing this thing called Banging Your Head during the shows. They're doing the head banging thing. So Kevin took that idea and turned it into that, took that music and turned it into that song.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you and Frankie Benelli were probably the guys that were in that band the most over the years. What was your relationship with Frankie like?
He certainly was.
Yeah.
He was there. He also played with Wasp.
Yep.
There was an interim where the band was no longer, and then Kevin was doing his own thing and whatever. But and he's played. I don't know if you know this, but he's the drummer on Moni Moni by Billy Idol.
Oh, really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, and one of my favorite records is an album with Glenn Hughes called Hughes Thrall.
Yes.
Project.
Yeah.
I think it's his best drumming, and I've heard all of his stuff. And we had a psychic connection when we played together. Working for him, he wore many hats. I mean, he had to be the manager. He had to be the road manager. He kind of, when I rejoined the situation, he took over everything. So he was kind of controlling figure. So it was kind of like he was my friend, but then and the other side of the coin, he was my boss at the same time. So it was an interesting dichotomy to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and we mentioned how you were also in Giuffria. You were on the first Giuffria record, but left before Silk and Steel, and then came back in the fold as they kind of morphed into House of Lords with James Christian coming on.
Yeah.
What kind of led to leaving and then coming back with that band?
With Giuffria, first that started with them asking me to come in and redo the bass parts on the album. And then they asked me to join the band, which I did. And we were very fortunate. We had a hit song with Call to Your Heart. And we toured. We did my first touring experience. Talk about getting spoiled. Started a sold out tour with Deep Purple on their Perfect Strangers tour when they got back together. their big reunion tour. And then we jumped over to Foreigner, who had I Want to Know What Love Is At, which was a #1 song. So that was totally sold out. So I was totally spoiled. But both, and the guitar player in the band was Craig Goldie, who you know from Dio. At that time, when it was time for us to do a new record, Greg Giuffria and Dave Isley, the singer, said, no, we're the writers. You guys, we're going to do all the writing. And we go, wait a minute. That's part of the whole thing is being. So we both left. Kevin had called me and said, hey, Rudy's leaving the band. You want to join the band and you can write all the songs with us and you can be an equal member, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I said, hell yeah. I go, this is a dead end, kind of, basically like they're making me a side guy.
Right.
I started as a side guy, just filling in, but as a composer, you want to be involved in that aspect of everything, besides the publishing and all that. You want to be involved in getting your message out as well, musically, to people. So when they said we couldn't do that, we both, Goldie and I, said adios, and he went to Dio, and I went back to to join Quiet Riot. And then after that, that's when Kevin was let go of the band, and he really was the band. And at that point, I decided to leave too. And I did the Chris and Pelletieri record that you mentioned with Graham Bonnet and my friend Pat Torpy, and Philip Wolf was the keyboard player. And then at that time, I got a call from Greg Giuffria again saying, hey, listen, I have an opportunity here with Gene Simmons, Gene from Kiss. He's got a custom label deal with RCA. If we could put a killer band together, he'll sign it. And I said, well, that's great, but do I get to write songs this time?
What's different?
Yeah. And I actually became a majority writer of the band. But so I was working with a singer at the time named James Christian in a band called Eyes that actually Jeff Gaudiosi was also a singer in, which is all his vestures. Anyway, so I brought him on board and we auditioned a bunch of drummers, I think 24 drummers. And it came down to Matt Sorum, who's a good friend of mine. I've worked with, I did a solo record. I've done 7 films with him, scores. But anyway, Matt Sorum and Ken Mary. And I was outvoted. I love Ken. I think he's one of the best drummers there is. He's amazing. We saw him play with Alice Cooper. And Alice is doing his theatric stuff, and I'm watching the drummer going, this guy's incredible. So we got him down. And later, as you know, so Ken became the drummer of House of Lords, and we became really good friends. And he's a award-winning record producer, has his own studio in Phoenix area, and I've done a bunch of records for him. And then he's on my album. He plays drums on a track and actually mixed it too.
And and House of Lords has changed so much. I mean, the James Christian, Jimmy Bell version now, personally, I love all eras of the band, but it's a completely different band than you, Greg.
Well, what the way that happened was we got together in 05, but Greg couldn't join us or didn't feel he could play. He wasn't up to snuff playing wise at that point. And we got together in England and did performed live, and it actually came out as a really great live record called Live in the UK. And at that time, James was negotiating with the label about doing his own House of Lords. And we at that point, we couldn't go, we didn't have the funding to go into any kind of litigation about it and say, hey, James, you can't just take the name. But anyway, he did. And it's good stuff. And I love Jimmy Bell. We're friends and he's great. But you're right, it is a different thing. And it's basically just using the name to get attention. It worked for him, for James to do that, but it's not fair that he did that, but he did it. One of those things. But what's he done now? 10 albums or something like that?
Yeah, I think they have a new one coming out too in a month or two. So
yeah, they
still going.
They keep going, and it's always good stuff. I mean, they write good songs for that kind of thing. It's all, not to, God, how can I do this without being, not to denigrate anybody, but there are a lot of really great musicians that have gotten together, and they seem to all be making the same record. It's all very much the same kind of melodic rock. It's got to be this kind of changes. It's got to have this kind of chorus and this kind of it's all interchangeable to me when I listen to the different bands that are coming out that were put together. Like they'll take this guy and that guy, and it's all seems very similar to me. It doesn't really have a lot of character to it.
It's time for something new to hit the scene.
Well, it's time for some,
Mhm.
change it up a little bit.
Yeah. And we also talked a little bit about Ultimate Jam Night, which has been a huge thing that you were one of the principals in starting. I mean, how did that even come about?
It was I did start it.
Yeah,
Yes.
how did that even come about? Because it's been, quite a few years now. It just keeps getting bigger.
2015.
We've done some here on the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, it started actually. There was this little bar near where I live here in Studio City. It was in Toluca Lake, and James Lomenzo and Kenny Aronoff had a little jam band with Brent Woods, and they would get together, and they actually started doing this jam thing, but they really didn't have. They would once in a while they'd call somebody, "Hey, look who's here! Come on up." It was that kind of thing, and those guys are great, but you could set your watch by okay, so it's 10:30. They'll be doing the ZZ Top song right now. So you kind of, you know what I mean? It really wasn't growing. It wasn't becoming something. So they both they had to go out on the road with Fogerty, both James and Kenny, and they asked me if I would take it over. So I said, okay, I'll take it over, but I'm going to kind of do it my own way. And I started having like 35 guests, and it blew up to this thing, and then that place closed. The club owner sold it off and became a different restaurant. So some months go by, and people were coming up to me going, "Hey, when are you going to do the jam thing again that you had?" It didn't have a name; it was just a jam, right? And so I found another venue and talked to them, and they said, "Well, we'll give you, we'll try it out. Let's try it out." And we did really great. We were there for 55 weeks, totally packed it. And that was 2015. And then we moved over to the Whiskey, to a legendary venue in a much bigger space, a more appropriate space for what we wanted to do. We had a backstage area, green room. We had room for guitar techs, and Mikey, actually the owner of the Whiskey, told me when we met with him that residencies don't really work at the Whiskey. So I'll give you a couple weeks. We'll see how it goes. And look how long we've been there. We did have to take some time off for the pandemic, but we're still going. We just did a benefit for the Ukraine, for the World Central Kitchen, raised a lot of money for that. And this week's show is Britain Rocks Part 1, because there's so many great artists from Britain that we'll be doing probably Part 16 down the road. It's amazing when I started like researching it, going, "Oh my God, I can't." They're all from England. All these great artists, like from the 60s through now. It's like crazy.
And bringing it back to Sheltering Sky, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, it's a pretty diverse record. There's a lot of different sounds and types of music in it. Is there one song where you would point to and say, this is who Chuck Wright is as a solo artist?
One song, that's really tough, because it is, again, when I started doing this, there was no intention of creating a solo record. I was just writing songs that I'd want to hear. But maybe Giving Up the Ghost, because it's been in my blood for a while, and I finally got it out. Maybe that one. If I had to pick one, it's not kind of hard to pick one song.
Well, and so now that you did get it out and those songs are there, I mean, do you see yourself putting a band together and playing these songs? Is it the beginning of a Chuck Wright solo career, or was it just something that you needed to get out there for now?
Well, this question has come up a lot about it. And if you listen to, when people do listen to the album, it would take a lot to be able to pull off the vision I would have for this album to be a live thing. I would need Roger Waters or Paul McCartney's budget, really, to make it an immersive experience, because the record really is a cinematic kind of feel to it. I can imagine doing a stripped down version and doing maybe a couple songs like Throwing Stones and Army of Me, and then taking some other songs from my past, the stuff from the Odd Man Out era, and maybe a House of Lords thing or something, so that less guys could pull it off, because one of the songs has 5 guitar players.
Yes, you have a lot of people.
It's deep. There's a lot of things going on. It all makes sense. It's not just thrown out there.
It's layers.
Yes, layers of things all complementing each other. Yeah.
Well, we've been spending some time here with Chuck Wright. The record is called Sheltering Sky, out everywhere May 20th. Chuck, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. It's
Hey,
just
thanks
been
for
an
having me.
absolute pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Hopefully I'll see you when I come out for an Ultimate Jam night out there.
Yeah, you got to come out to one of the New York ones. Like I said,
Yeah, I
Misplaced
know.
Straws, we sponsor and always at the
I know.
event. So
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Awesome.
my pleasure. And so we'd love to see you. So best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chuck.